Welcome in from Chicago. Will I be editing this? Putting it right into my Chicago video. And make sure that you guys check that out. Got a phone holder on me.
All right, everybody. You guys ready for a boat ride today? What do you say? We got one lady up here saying, good job. My name is Spiro. Spiro, that's me, lifelong Chicago native, born and raised here. I've been doing tours here for about 10 years. And so that's even we're in good hands here today. I'll be taking care of you. We got a fair amount of time together, 45 minutes on the river. We're going to drop you off where we pick you up so you don't have to worry about getting lost. Now I'm going to tell you about the history of Chicago on our tour. We're going to talk about Chicago culture, and of course, this is an architectural cruise. So we are going to talk about the buildings. But those aren't the main things I want to tell you today. The main thing I want to tell you is I love my city. And my big hope is by the end of this tour, all of you fall in love with Chicago as well. Does that sound pretty good? And you're on the right boat, that'll work out just fine. Now, we're going to talk about a lot of different architecture on our tour. As we come up from underneath the bridge, we're going to head into the groove.
Ooh, so cold.
Over here on the right, very iconic towers here in Chicago, looking like corn on the cob. These are Marina City. Bertrand Goldberg is the name of the architect here, but a social scientist. Trying to change where people live. You see, back in the 1960s,
You know what?
a lot of people lived downtown.
Let's go up.
They go home to the suburbs at night.
Everything's
So
dry.
Bertrand Goldberg built Marina City as a city within the city. Apartments up above, valley apartments down below. But inside the building, stores, restaurants, fitness center. Used to have an ice skating rink in there. So
Shall we go up?
Used to have a movie theater, which is now the House of Blues. Marina City and Introvert Street, right?
I don't know. Think about it.
Now they call it Marina City because there's a place to park your yacht, which was surprising.
And it is very freezing out. So I'm covered right now.
Chicago River in the 1960s. Today, that's all changed. If you look over to your left, you can see we've added about a mile of new shoreline in the city with Ballon Riverwalk. It's a great example of a positive loop. As more folks come down the river, the more interested they are in keeping.
Yeah, I'm going to go up.
As the river gets cleaner and cleaner, the more people come down.
Let me tell you about that.
And it just keeps getting better and better. Now over here on our left, some buildings covered with reflective glass.
What?
Look at how the neighbors across the way appear
Good,
to
I'm gonna go
say
up.
the
Everyone else
houses
is doing it.
of the buildings. Look at how they give the surreal impression as though you can look straight through the buildings and the sky behind them. These buildings trying to look good in context.
Good, I just let her know.
And we'll see more examples of that as we continue on our tour. Now, the next building we'll take a look at is a great example of how architects here in Chicago respect their architectural heritage. Over here on the left, you'll see this building that changes about 3/4 of the way down. This is the Builders Building. The part closest to us from the 1920s, the annex in the back and the roof added in the 1980s.
Hi, how we doing?
The intersection from the 80s, you'll see it's built with modern
I know, shall we go up?
modern technique. But as we get closer and closer to the building, perhaps two different sections.
Whoa. Whoa. Oh, heads up. That's what.
We get a closer look at the Builders Building here on our left as we come out from underneath the bridge. Once you're done on the left, we're going to cut across the river.
Yes, it's
Take a look at the style of architecture we'll see over and over again today on our tour. Over on the right, take a look at the big wide building with the green pyramid on top. Let's look at some of the details first. You'll see soaring vertical lines up the surface of the building, leading to little setbacks at the top. All of that draws your eyes up the building, making for a very optimistic style of architecture. This is Art Deco from the roaring
Heads up.
20s, the late 20s
That's
to
a
the
water
early
line.
1930s. Every time you see a building like this, soaring vertical lines,
Yes, please,
setbacks
thank you.
at the top, more often than not, it'll be that Art Deco style. Now, this building is the Merchandise Mart. This is where merchants in Chicago would shop for goods for their stores back in the early 1930s. So you wouldn't shop for a couch here, but the shop that you shop at might shop here for 5,000 couches, if that makes that any clearer for you. Out in front of the building, you'll see
Thank you
these
so much.
pillars with busts of some famous American merchants. Names you might be familiar with: Montgomery Ward, Marshall Field, Woolworth, just to name a few. And if you're able to climb up any one of those pillars and you push back real hard on those great big heads, a big hunk of candy comes out of their necks. And that's a Pez joke. I'm just seeing who's still paying attention. Now as we come out from underneath the bridge, eyes up, cameras out, as we head into one of the most breathtaking parts of our river. Welcome everyone to Wolf Point, a 360-degree view of architecture. Most of the buildings you see around here built in just the last few years. Wolf Point's the name of the part of the river where the main branch, what we're on, meets up to the north and south branches, and the river is why Chicago is here. If you head out through the south branch and get out to the Mississippi, ultimately out to the Gulf of Mexico in one direction, head out the other way through the Great Lakes, you can get out to the Atlantic Ocean, New York, and beyond. That makes Chicago the beating heart of the United States. Everything coming in and out from right here. Now straight in front of us, where the points of the river meet, this building is called River Point. That makes sense, right? But because of the parabolic arches at the top and bottom of the building, some folks say it looks like the box your microwave Hot Pockets in. They call it the Hot Pocket building. That arch at the bottom is to make way for a train line that runs underneath it. Those circular holes in the wall there, all exhaust fans for that train line. Now that train line continues behind 150 North Riverside. That's why there's a setback behind that building to make room for the train line behind it. And then the city mandates a 30-foot setback from the river. So the base of this building looks like a pencil standing on its point, which can be a little concerning given the height of the building, right? Nothing to worry about. It's very structurally strong. But I am going to share with you today some techniques that builders use to build these really tall buildings here in this very windy city. Now you might have heard about this before. A lot of times these buildings are built to sway in the wind. That alleviates wind pressure on a building. If the building can sway, good for the building. Not fun for the people inside. You can get seasick in a building like that. So sometimes
Let's
to
have a
compensate
show
for
out.
it, they put giant tanks of water in the tops of the buildings. This building has around 200,000 gallons of water built into the top of it. So when the building sways in the wind, all
Why did
that
they call
water
it wind chill?
sloshes, and the weight of the water pulls the building back towards center quicker. They're called
Hang on, give
inertial
it time.
slosh dampeners in this very windy
Feels like
city.
28
Over here on the left,
degrees.
another new addition to the Skyline, Bank of America building from 2020. Another example of respecting our architectural heritage. The building that was here before from the 1950s had these wavy silver panels on the side. When they tore down the old building, they saved those silver panels. Take a look at your eye level. See the wavy silver panels at the base of the building? They're from the older building that was here before. Just a decorative detail, but a nice tip of the hat to the history of architecture here on the river. Speaking of the history of architecture on the river, the next section we're coming into we call our timeline of architecture. 5 buildings on the right side, built in chronological order. And as we go through one by one, you can see how architecture has changed here in Chicago, starting with soaring vertical lines. Setbacks at the top, again, that optimistic Art Deco style from the Roaring 20s. But when you think about the United States in the 30s, what's going on? You have the Great Depression. Cut across the river, another beautiful Art Deco building, the Civic Opera building. The Civic Opera only performed in this space for 3 seasons. They had to shut their doors because of the Great Depression. So not a lot of buildings being built in the 1930s, not a lot of buildings being built in the 1940s because of World War II. So it's not till the 1950s that
Oh my God,
architecture gets
the
a
code.
complete reboot. Take a look at the next 2 buildings coming up on the right. 2 words probably come to mind. Black boxes. That's sometimes what we call
Whoa.
this style of architecture. Black box modernism. Mies van der Rohe is the name of the architect most closely associated with this style. Famous for saying, less is more. You might have heard of that before, right? What does that mean? Well, look at the buildings. No decorative details, no gargoyles. Instead, you can see what the building is made out of,
the unison.
metal and glass. It's supposed to be a more honest, more elegant style of architecture, like a simple black dress. This stays popular throughout the 50s and 60s. It's not until the 1970s that we see even a slight change. If you take a look at the next building coming up on our right after we come out from underneath the bridge, you'll see not much changes. We go from black boxes to white boxes. This is the international style from the 1970s. The idea here, this is the type of building you can put anywhere in the world. It'll fit right in because it ignores the space you put it in. And after 3 decades of boxy buildings,
this is still the Union Station
that they're in, people start to get tired of this style of architecture. Looking around the boat, some of you already seem tired of it. So let's take a look at the next building coming up on our right. This one from the 1980s, now covered in reflective glass. What does the reflective glass do? Well, it shows off the neighbors. It's not just about the building anymore, it's about the space around it. If you look at the color of the glass, you'll see it's very similar to the color of the river. As the river curves, the building curves along with it. Why? It's trying to look good in context. That contextualism we talked about earlier starts in the 1980s. So to review, we started off with Art Deco in the Roaring 20s, then black boxes turned into white boxes until we were thinking outside the box with contextualism by the 1980s. Does that make sense? Give me a thumbs up if you're still following along.
Yeah.
Great. You'll be all set for our quiz later.
What
now,
quiz?
as the captain turns the vessel, he reveals to us the undisputed king of the Chicago skyline. That tall, dark, and handsome fellow with the antennas on top.
Willis Tower.
Of course, the magnificent
Willis Tower.
Sears Tower.
Yes.
It's also the Willis Tower. We'll talk about the confusion with the name here in just a moment. This is the tallest building in Chicago. However, it was the tallest building in the world when it first opened in 1974, and it held on to that title for over 20 years. That's a long time to hold on to that title. And the way that it did it is our second technique for building really tall buildings here in this very windy city. You see, the Sears Tower is actually 9 towers bundled together.
Really?
You can see it from above. It's on a 3x3 grid. Each of the spots on that grid has its own tower. All of the smaller towers add support to the 2 tallest towers. Bundling. It's a frustratingly simple concept, but that's how they built the building so tall. It's how it held on to the title for so long. Still the standard to this day. 1,451 feet from the first open air entrance up to the roof. That
good, it's a water
does
ride.
not include the antenna. The antenna are not designed by the architect, so they're not included in the height of the building, as opposed to, say, a spire.
Water ride.
But those antenna, fairly tall. Remember the black box buildings I showed you earlier? Those buildings just about 300 feet tall. That's how tall the antennas are on top of the Sears Tower that aren't included in the height of the building.
Taking a picture of
now let's talk about the confusion with the name. When the building first opened in 1974, they called it the Sears Tower, built by Sears Roebuck Department Stores. For you younger folks, department stores. You used to have to leave your house to shop. Not so popular today. Sure enough, Sears no longer in the building. Company by the name of Willis has rented out a few floors, and they also lease the naming rights. So if you look at a map of the city, it reads Willis Tower, but if you ask anyone who lives here, we're a little nostalgic, a little stubborn. We keep calling it Sears. I know it's confusing for folks from out of town. Very simple explanation on this one. See, it's spelled Willis. It's pronounced Sears. It's as simple as that.
Really?
Now, I've been saying over and over again, this
That's
windy
crazy.
city of Chicago. You know, that's one of our nicknames, right? They call us the Windy City. We
Yeah.
are a fairly windy city, but that's not where the nickname came from. The nickname came from our 1893 World's Fair. We had an enormous World's Fair here in 1893. 27 million people visited us in 7 months for the fair, turning us into a world-class city. Lots of other cities wanted the fair. Some of them accused us of exaggerating. They wrote the newspaper that Windy City of Chicago, meaning we were full of hot air. We don't mind. We have lots of other nicknames. Second City is another one. We used to be second biggest in population here in the U.S. We're now third. We're also the second city we rebuilt after the Great Chicago Fire. 1871, all of downtown Chicago burned to the ground Ironically, one of the best things that ever happened to us. We're able to build back stronger after that fire. Some other nicknames for Chicago: City of Big Shoulders, city that works. We're a very hard-working blue-collar town. Sweet Home Chicago, home to gospel music, jazz, blues. Chi-Town for short. Shiberia when it gets real cold. But how about the name Chicago? Where does that come from? Well, we have the indigenous people who were here before us to thank for that. Think back to when this was all swampland.
Whoops.
There were these onions that grew along the banks of the river, and the onions stunk. And the indigenous people had a name for these onions. They called them Chicagoa, and that became the name for the whole region. So New York is the Big Apple, and Chicago is the stinky onion. That's what our name means, and we don't mind. We'll put onions on almost anything here. I'd like to share with you some tips on some food you might want to try while you're in town. Chicago, well known for its deep dish
Pizza.
Pizza so thick you gotta eat it with a knife and fork. Now there's lots of different styles. Giordano's, Pizzeria Uno. My personal favorite is called Lou Malnati's. L-O-U Malnati's. Anybody like sausage on top of their pizza? Show of hands, a few of you. How does wall-to-wall sausage sound? That's how they serve it.
Okay, go ahead, have fun.
Just a hubcap of meat sitting on top of that pie. If that
I don't
sounds
mind
good
this
to you,
water
they have
vibe.
one at the base of the Wrigley building right where we drop you off. But I have saved the best for last, and that is, of course, the Chicago style hot dog. We
Yep.
take our hot dogs very seriously here. They're called Drug Through the Garden. Why? Here's what we put on a Chicago dog: onions, tomatoes, relish, pickle spear, sport peppers,
Mustard.
celery salt, and mustard.
No
There's
ketchup.
only one thing we don't put on a Chicago style hot dog. and
Ketchup! Ketchup!
Ketchup. You will catch hands if you ask for ketchup.
You're
Skip it
correct.
while you're in town. The bottle's waiting for you at home. Good place again, a Chicago dog, not too far from where we drop you off. A restaurant called Portillo's. Now, as we head back into Wolf Point, as promised, we have our first pop quiz. Over here on the right is the new Veeam building from the 1980s. Now, I'm going to describe the building to all of you. Then I'll give you multiple choice on the style of architecture. All you need to do is raise your hand with the number that you think is right. Are you ready?
Yes.
Well, we're going to do it anyway. The new V building from the 1980s covered in reflective glass. The reflective glass showing off the neighbors. The color of the glass very similar to the color of the river. As the river curves, the building curves along with it. Why? It's trying to look good in context. What do we call that style of architecture? Is it 1, Art Deco? Is it 2, contextualism? Or is it 3, black box modernism? Raise your hand with the number that you think is right. Yeah, give me those peace signs, you hippies. It is 2. Look at that. You learned something against your will on a boat today.
Woo!
You did so well with that, let's try another. Here in Chicago, we have a lot of public art. In Millennium Park, we have a piece of public art officially called Cloudgate, but nobody in Chicago calls it that. We all call it the Bean. That's
Bean.
right. Fun fact about the Bean: the artist who designed it hates that we call it that. So keep it up, everybody. Here's another piece of public art for you. The Merchandise Mart. What am I talking about? On the other side of the river, you'll see this big black box full of projectors. If you come by here after dark, they project art onto the surface of the Merchandise Mart. It's a free public art program. They do it twice a night. They feature different artists throughout the year, and they call it Art on the Mart. You saw the big black box full of projectors. There's also boxes full of dirt down in the water. Those boxes are down there so the root systems from the plants that grow there in the spring and summer provide fish a space to spawn and raise their young. They're called fish hotels. Back in the 1970s, they tested the river. We had about 10 species of fish living here. They checked again recently. We have over 80. So it's a great example of how the river is getting cleaner and healthier. Great view of the main branch of the river straight in front of the boat. For us right now, over on our left, we'll talk about an old grocery store warehouse from the 1910s. This is the Reed Murdoch building. Grocery store warehouse originally. Today it's got office space inside of it, classrooms, restaurants down at the base. But here's what I want you to do. As we come out from underneath the bridge, find the clock tower in the center of the building, and then count along with me the banks of windows on each side. Over here on the left, you'll see there's 1, 2, 3,
Three.
4, 5 on this side of the clock tower. Look on the other side. 1,
2,
2, 3,
three,
4, 5.
five.
Whoop, 6. That's a lopsided building. What's going on here? Well, when they built the LaSalle Street Bridge, this one right behind us, they had to widen the street to do so. They cut off a chunk of this building and rebuilt it so you wouldn't notice. You see, guys, this is why you go on these tours, right? All of us, we know what's up. See these people on the shore? Not a clue. Also, not many people on the shore. Now as we come out from underneath the bridge over on the right, take a look at the building with the 55 on it. Let's look at some of the details. Deep set windows, concrete on the surface, kind of an intimidating style of architecture. This is brutalism from the late 1960s. A lot of social upheaval in the U.S. at that time, so they wanted an intimidating style of architecture. A lot of government buildings and college campuses from the late 1960s built in the brutalist style. That name brutalism, though, comes from the French word for raw concrete, béton brut, referring to the concrete on the surface of the building. As we come out from underneath the bridge,
Whoa.
take a look at the skyline in front of us. See if you can find a building that looks like a green glass champagne bottle with gold foil around the neck. If you see it, point at it so your friends can find it. Yeah, over on the right, the Carbide and Carbon building. Soaring vertical lines and setbacks let you know Art Deco building, you know the style, you know what it's from, the Roaring 20s. What's going on in Chicago? Prohibition. Want to see how Chicagoans felt about not drinking? Look at the champagne bottle building. Tells you everything you need to know. Now, straight in front of the boat, you'll see 4 buildings bunched up right next to each other. A lot of other cities build this way, where the buildings take up all the available real estate. Imagine you're walking down the street and all the buildings are pressing in on you like that. How does that make you feel? Might make you feel a little anxious, right? Like
Yes.
there's no room for you. Well, take a look around. You'll see that's not usually how we build here in Chicago. There's a lot of room to breathe around our buildings. A lot of folks come here, they'll say for such a big city, Chicago feels pretty laid back. Well, I would suggest to you, it's our architecture that makes people feel that way. When there's room to breathe around the buildings, it feels like there's room for you. You see, architects can change the way you feel about a space that you're in. So since we're out here on the river with all this room to breathe, let's all take a nice deep breath together. What do you guys say? Ready? Here
Yes.
we go. How's everybody feeling? Having a good time so far? I'm
Cold.
having a great time with you. I know some of you are taking a look at where we dock coming up here on our left, thinking to yourself, oh no, the tour's almost over. Not today. I talked to the captain. We're going all the way out towards the lake. What do you guys say?
Yeah!
We do it every tour. Probably my favorite building coming up here on the left. This is the Wrigley Building. That's a name you'll see all over town. Wrigley Field, Wrigley Chewing Gum. That's all bubble gum money you're looking at there from the 1920s. Across the street from it, Tribune Tower, where they used to make the Chicago Tribune newspaper. High-end condominiums today. Both of those buildings trying to look like European cathedrals. In between the two, another Art Deco building, but what's on the top of this one? An onion dome. That's the Intercontinental Hotel today. Used to be the headquarters for the Shriners, a men's group that liked Turkish details. They would wear little fez hats. That's why they put a Moorish onion on top of their Art Deco building. Now we found the onion, now here's the Apple, our little Apple store with the see-through walls. Cool little building, but talk about subliminal marketing. Look at that iPad for a roof. You didn't even know you wanted one until you walked in there. You found the Apple, now here's the Peacock. NBC Tower, looking like Rockefeller Center in New York. Rockefeller Center, beautiful Art Deco building from the Roaring 20s. We didn't build ours until 1989. That doesn't count as Art Deco. So if you're copying the Art Deco style, they call that Eco Deco. Cutting across the river, I'm going to attempt to show you the 4th tallest building in the city. It's another international style building, so it's a big white box and a big white cloud right now. That's the Aon Center. Today used to be the headquarters for Standard Oil. That building originally covered in white marble. That white marble did not appreciate Chicago winters. Started to crack and fall off the building. They had to replace it floor by floor with granite at the cost of about $1 million per floor. There's about 80 floors to that building. I'll let you do the math. Staying on the right side of the river, you'll see this brown building with the stripe on it that says James Hardie. We don't care about it. Look at the one behind it. See the wavy lines on that building? That's Aqua Tower from 2009. Those wavy lines are patios designed that way so it looks like water is flowing down the side of the building. Get it? Aqua Tower, designed by a superstar architect. Her name, Jeannie Gang. Jeannie Gang, born and raised right here in the Midwest, won a MacArthur Genius Grant. Certified genius, Jeannie Gang. Came back to Chicago in 2021 and designed the third tallest building in the city. Over here on the right is the St. Regis. Now, I promise we will see the bottom 2/3 of every building on our tour here today. The St. Regis, third tallest building in Chicago. This is the tallest building in the world, designed by a female-led architectural firm. So we're very proud of that. Changing face of architecture on display right here in Chicago. And this building has all three techniques we're going to talk about today for building really tall buildings here in this very windy city.
Very
Up in that
windy.
tallest tower, hundreds of thousands of gallons of water. As the building sways, the water sloshes under
This
those
is
slosh
miserable.
dampeners. Then remember the bundling technique we talked about. Take a look at the stair steps going up the St. Regis. Each of those smaller towers adding support to that tallest tower. But here's one we haven't mentioned yet. Can't really see it on a day like today. At the 83rd, 84th floor, you can look right through the building. That's because there's no walls, there's no windows up there. Those are blow-through floors. You want to alleviate some of the wind pressure on your building?
God.
One way to do it is, but it's also
like 31.
surprisingly expensive. Why? If you were to buy 2 floors of that building today, it would set you back about $13 million. And
Wow.
it turns out, you can't sell floors of a building that don't have walls or windows. But that's what you have to do if you want to build really tall buildings here in this very windy city.
Very
Now,
windy.
don't worry about craning your neck up to see the St. Regis right now. We're about to do a turnaround out on the lakefront. You'll be able to take a look back at the city. You might even be able to see those blow-through floors after we do that turnaround. But before we head out to the lakefront, one more iconic building stepping into view over here on our left. That beautiful black building stepping out to greet us is Lake Point Tower. High-end condominium from the 1960s. Great views of the city and the lake can be had from Lake Point Tower. But as we get closer and closer
so
to the
cool.
building, you might start to feel sad for it. Because it's all alone out there.
All by
Don't.
itself.
That building's not supposed to be there. When they founded Chicago, they made a promise that our lakefront was to remain open, free, and clear for all Chicagoans for as long as the city was around. No private property. Well, back in the 1960s, the people that built Lake Point Tower found a little loophole in that law. Whoop, out popped Lake Point Tower. Since then, we've closed that loophole, and now it's out there by itself. It's in timeout thinking about what it did, all right? Don't talk to it. But it does bring up one of the greatest... Sorry about that. It does bring up one of the greatest features of our city, our lakefront. Over 17 miles of uninterrupted lakefront property. Free use for anyone. One of the most popular parts
feels
of our
much better on
lakefront.
here.
Navy Pier over here on the left. A lot of fun things to do out of the pier.
You were there
Ride the
yesterday.
Ferris wheel for one, and yes, the cars on the Ferris wheel are enclosed and heated. So even on a day like today, you can go enjoy yourself out on the Ferris wheel. You know what else is enclosed and heated is
The downstairs.
our bar. This is last call for alcohol. If you want to get yourself one more beverage, we do ask that you finish up any of your alcoholic beverages before you get off the boat. It is also last call for our restrooms. The restrooms will be closed when we dock, so if you need to head to the head one more time, now's the time for that as well. Now as we do a turnaround out here on the lake, front. We're not quite on the lake, we're still on the river. But as we do a turnaround out here, I do invite you out of your seats to get your cameras out to take some photographs of our beautiful skyline. I'm going to step away from the microphone. If you have any questions for me, feel free to come on up and ask. Otherwise, once we turn around and get back out from underneath the bridge, I'll get back on the mic and we'll finish up our tour. I'll see you then.
Sure.
What's that?
It is so cold out.
It is cold. You might want to go downstairs and warm up.
No, hey, I got guts. My mother's downstairs.
Sound good? Doing all right over here?
So why would there be a Chicago Fire Department boat? I can't understand ambulances. Or maybe we did a fire boat? Which I definitely don't want to think about. You're asking that.
Grillos that is like about a half a block away. It's a Korean steakhouse. Yeah, I love that place. And they come in and what they do is it's not a huge amount of steak, but what they do is they cook it at the table for you. So that they give it to you. I get there's like a we usually get like there's a big order and they bring out all this stuff with it. We usually just get one. So you don't need a ton of meat. But you get all these crazy sides like cheese, all this like exotic stuff, so that's another option. But yeah, Morton's is good if you like well, it's just keep it right there. Yeah, that's exactly it. Well, so basically what's happening is that the surface of the lake is about 5 feet taller than the surface of the river. So they have to raise and lower the boats as they go between the different bodies of water. Main reason for that being that if the lock wasn't there, the water from the lake would just the reason is they want to control how much water is coming out of the lake. So we did that, right?
Here we go. We're moving. So question, I should know this, but why are there fire department boats?
Why are there fire department boats? Because if there's a fire on the river, anywhere along the river, a great way to fight it is from these fire boats. They have these water cannons on the back. They can pump water directly from the boat into the building. The other thing is these are icebreakers. So for safety's sake, during the winter, they send the icebreakers up and down the river, break up all the ice, so that they can get through in case of emergency.
Wow. How often do you guys have to use them? Not often?
Have to is not, don't have to use them very often at all, except for breaking up ice in the winter quite a bit, yeah.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah. How you guys doing back here? Doing all right? So cool. Where are you guys from? Have a good time.
Whew. Oh yeah. Very chilly. But it's not as bad coming back, as it feels like a nice 21 degrees. But the real temperature is, excuse me, not 21, 31. The real temperature is 44 degrees. So that is a 13 weather difference. Which is unbelievably cold. After this, we are off to Starbucks Reserve. Wait, not Starbucks Reserve. On the Pedway first, and then Starbucks Reserve. We just have about 10 minutes left.
All right, everybody. As we start to head back into port, a good way to recap a lot of what we've been talking about here today is with our flag. We're very proud of our flag in Chicago. You'll see it all over town when you start to look for it. There is one on a flagpole over here on our left. There's also one hanging off of the front of the boat. If you bought yourself a warm beverage today, it's also printed on the side of the cup. Everything on the flag stands for something. It's got a white background, 2 blue stripes, 4 red stars. The 2 blue stripes represents the lake and the river. The reason the city is here. The white background is broken up into 3 sections by the 2 blue stripes, the same way the river breaks up the city into 3 sections at Wolf Point. A north side, a south side, and a west side. There is no official east side. That's the lake. And the 4 red stars represent major events in the history of Chicago. We've talked about a few of them already. The 2nd star on the flag, the Great Chicago Fire in 1871. The 3rd star, that 1893 World's Fair. Now, we had a 2nd World's Fair here in 1933. That's the 4th star on the flag, which leaves the 1st star, which represents the first time the American flag was flying over this part of the country at Fort Dearborn, right around 1800. Fort Dearborn was the most western fort in the United States. It was originally right on the other side of the river from where we dock our boat today. Cool. It wasn't there for very long, built right around 1800. It was destroyed in a war in 1812. Anybody know the name of the war? War 1812. Oh. We don't ask any difficult questions on the tour. Now, I know that's a lot to keep track of, but we have an easy way to remember it all. We call it the 4 F's. The fort, the fire, the fair, and the fair. If you can remember the 4 F's, you can remember what all 4 stars on our flag stand for. Now, as we pull back into port, one last building to point out to you straight in front of the boat. You can figure out the name of this building, has its name tag on it, Trump International Hotel and Tower. This building from 2009, covered in reflective glass, fairly tall. As a matter of fact, this is the 2nd tallest building in Chicago. And just like that, we've seen the top 4 tallest buildings in the city. Sears or Willis Tower number 1, Trump Tower number 2, St. Nate Regis number 3, number 4, the Aon Center. However, the Trump Tower here is the 2nd tallest because it has a spire on the top of it, designed by the architect. Just a decorative detail, serves no purpose, but it is that spire that makes Trump Tower the 2nd tallest building in the city. But the last story I have to share with you today is about someone who was here before Fort Dearborn. Fascinating story about a man born in Haiti in the 1700s, who we sometimes call the father of Chicago. His name, Jean-Baptiste Pont du Sable. He was a black man, African mother, French father. He was a fur trader, and what he did was he paddled up the Mississippi River, paddled up the Chicago River, and he built a log cabin at the mouth of the Chicago River as a fur trading outpost. Pretty much where we dock our boat today. Married a Potawatomi woman by the name of Kitty Howa, and the couple lived here very successfully for a number of years. Now, I shared this story with you today for 2 reasons. The first one being, if you were here right around 1780, there would be a log cabin where we dock our boat. The river would be right next to that. And where we are now, this was the lake. Not only were none of these buildings here, none of this land was here. This is all landfill that we built up over time. So in 1780, Chicago was just one log cabin. But the other reason I share this story with you, and probably more importantly, is because it's a great example of how Chicago has always been a city of immigrants right from the very beginning. Unless you're an indigenous person, everybody who lives here came from somewhere else. Part of what makes our city so great, part of my own personal story as well. My father, originally from Greece. My mother born here, but a few generations back, her ancestors were from Ireland. They met here in this city of immigrants, and I'll tell you what, I'm pretty glad they did, right? So as we finish up our tour, just a little bit of housekeeping, take a look around you. Make sure you grab all your stuff. We don't want you to forget anything on the boat. If there's any trash around you, we ask that you drop it off at one of the garbage cans on the way out. Our crew thanks you in advance for that. And as we begin our docking procedures, you'll know it's time to get off of the boat when you see a large man wearing a hat with a beard and a red scarf head down the ramp. That'll be me. I'll be the first one off the boat. I'll be down on the dock after the tour. If you have any questions for me, if you have any feedback for me, or if you have anything at all for me, that's greatly appreciated. So as we come back into port, before we left here today, I told you I was going to tell you about the history of Chicago, its architecture, and its culture. But more than all of that, I want you to ask yourself, did you fall in love with Chicago today? I hope that you did. And if you did, just tell people about us. Tell them what a great time you had. Tell them to come and visit us. So on behalf of Wendella Tours, on behalf of the captain, the crew, and myself, I want to welcome you back to what I truly believe is the greatest city in the world, Sweet Home Chicago! Thank you, folks, and enjoy the rest of your day.